There are names forever engraved in history, not just for numbers, not just for achievements, but for the indomitable spirit and soul of an era. In the blazing skies of World War II, amidst the sound of bullets tearing through the wind and engines echoing across the sky, appeared a man, a silver-winged bird, none other than Richard Bong. He was not a general, did not lead an army. He was just an ordinary young man from a small American town. But he, with courage, extraordinary skill, and a steadfast heart, became a nightmare for the Japanese Air Force. 40 aerial victories, an unmatched number. But behind every pull of the trigger was immense pressure. Behind each victory were loneliness, haunting memories, and fear of death that only those who have flown through hell would understand. Today, we will journey back in time, follow the traces of that pilot, to understand why Richard Bong was not just a hero of a war, but an eternal symbol of America's skies. Poplar, a humble name on the map of America, lying modestly between green forests and golden meadows of Wisconsin. There, among simple wooden houses and dusty dirt roads, a boy was born on September 24, 1920, Richard Ira Bong. The Bong family was not wealthy. They were farmers, working from early morning until late evening. His father, Carl Bong, was of Swedish descent, strict but full of love. His mother, Dora, gentle, calm, and always supportive of her children's dreams. From an early age, Richard was different. He didn't dream of becoming a doctor, nor a lawyer. He was passionate about the sky. When the first airplanes roared across Poplar's sky, other children ran in fear. Only Richard stood still, staring in awe, as if hypnotized. He began making wooden model planes, reading everything about aviation, learning to distinguish engine sounds. He would sit for hours just watching the blue sky and drawing unformed dreams. To others, it was childish fantasy. To Richard, it was destiny. As the world gradually descended into chaos, war erupted in Europe and the Pacific, and America was forced to prepare for the inevitable. Young men from all over were selected and trained to become pilots, and Richard Bong was among them. He enrolled in the United States Army Air Forces in 1941. At flight training schools in California and Arizona, Richard demonstrated unmatched natural talent. Instructors were astonished by his smooth control and almost instinctive reflexes. He learned every technique from circling to dive attacks and quickly became top of the class. What made Richard stand out was not only his skill, it was his stillness. While other cadets were loud and excited, Richard was always quiet, reserved, but his eyes seemed to be calculating, observing, as if his mind was always flying at a different altitude where only he and the airplane existed. When chosen to fly the P-38 Lightning, one of the most advanced fighters of the time, Richard felt he had found a part of his soul. With two powerful engines, superior speed, and an exceptional climb rate, the P-38 was the perfect tool for Bong's hunting instincts. And then, he was deployed to the Pacific. The true trial by fire began. 1942, the Pacific Front was engulfed in flames. The Japanese forces expanded their domination, occupying numerous islands from the Philippines, New Guinea to the Solomons. America was forced to counterattack, and through the thick smoke clouds, Richard Bong spread his wings. In December, his P-38 first encountered Mitsubishi Zeros, the pride of the Imperial Japanese Air Force. They were fast, agile, and the Japanese pilots extremely fierce. But Richard was undaunted. He flew as one with the wind, using the P-38's superior climb speed, diving unexpectedly from altitude, unleashing his first burst of fire. 1-0 was hit, its wing broken, bursting into flames like a fire star, then plunging into the jungle. That was Bong's first victory in the sky, and also the beginning of a legend. Soon after, 2 more were downed, then 4, then 8. His comrades began calling him the Ace of Aces, the trump card of the U.S. Air Force. But to Richard, this wasn't a game. He didn't count the lives he took. He counted the comrades who didn't return. After each battle, upon landing, Richard would often wander alone. He wrote letters to his parents, rarely speaking of his achievements, only saying that he was still alive, while the friends he named that morning, by nightfall lay silent in the jungle. There's a common misconception about heroes that they do not know fear. But the truth is, a hero is someone who is afraid, yet still acts. Richard Bong was not cold-blooded. His hands once trembled when loading bullets for the first time. He once dreamed of the faces of enemies he had shot down. But it was that very fear that made him fly more carefully, more precisely, as if every bullet was a wager with death. Bong had a habit of meticulously checking his plane. Before each mission, he personally inspected every rudder, every wing, every bullet, like an artist tuning his instrument before the final concert. He knew that one small mistake in the sky could cost a life. He never joked before takeoff. In the cockpit, Richard became a predator, cold, silent, but utterly focused. The enemy rarely saw him until they were hit. And then, throughout 1943 and 1944, the name Richard Bong became a nightmare for the Japanese Air Force. Wherever the P-38 appeared, the enemy knew that death lurked among the clouds. Amid fire and death looming every second, Richard Bong's heart still had room for something else: love. In 1944, during a leave in California, he met Marjorie Vitindal, a beautiful, gentle girl whose smile made him forget the war. They wrote to each other almost every week. He named his plane Marge and painted Marjorie's image on the nose of his P-38, a reminder that he fought to return, not to die as just a name on a gravestone. That love was not loud. There were no flashy pictures, no melodramatic stories. But it was what helped Richard keep his mind steady on the fine line between life and death. Between every takeoff and landing, the only thing he hoped for was a day to leave the sky and hold Marjorie's hand forever. April 1944, Richard Bong was already a name mentioned at every U.S. air base in the Pacific. But he didn't stop. His missions became increasingly daring. Sometimes, he charged alone into 5 zeros. Once, he flipped the P-38 midair to save a pilot surrounded by enemies. On July 10, 1944, Bong shot down 4 more enemy planes in a single mission. The squadron returned in awe. His comrades called it a death symphony, where gunfire and engine roars formed the soundtrack to a genius assassin's performance. And then, the unthinkable happened. On August 6, 1944, Bong officially downed his 40th enemy aircraft, a number etched in history. No American pilot had ever achieved it, and to this day, no one has surpassed it. He became the ace of aces, the hero among heroes. But what was truly admirable was not just his skill, it was that he survived. Over more than 200 missions, Bong was never shot down. With a heavy aircraft, in the harsh tropical environment, amidst thousands of bullets flying from all directions, he still returned, again and again, as if even death respected him. Richard Bong's achievements could not be ignored. He was called back to the U.S. Crowds lined up to greet him. The entire nation cheered. The press called him the guardian of the Pacific skies. President Roosevelt personally awarded him the Medal of Honor, the highest U.S. decoration. But beneath the flashbulbs and praise, Richard remained quiet. People saw him silently looking at his hometown sky. He didn't wear glory like a crown. He simply said, "I just did my duty." Many others didn't get the chance to come back and tell their stories. Richard was requested not to return to combat. The government wanted to keep him as a living symbol, an inspiration for new recruits. He agreed, but deep down, he never left the sky. He took a job testing jet aircraft for the Air Force, a new field, dangerous but full of promise. And once again, he flew. August 6, 1945, the same day America dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. The world was shaken by an unprecedented destructive power. But in California, another loss occurred, quieter, yet haunting. On a test flight, Richard Bong, the hero of the U.S. Air Force, took off in a P-80 Shooting Star jet. This was the future of military aviation, and Richard, as always, was the one brave enough to lead. But just minutes after takeoff, the engine malfunctioned. The plane lost lift, wobbled, then burst into flames midair. No one bailed out. No parachute. No rescue in time. Richard Bong perished at the age of 24, just as the world entered a new era of warfare. Richard Bong died too young, but what he left behind is immortal. His name was given to an airbase, a bridge, schools. Young soldiers stepping into cockpits today still learn to fly like him, still read books about him. In Poplar, the small town where he was born, there is a museum dedicated to Richard. Inside are hastily written letters, an old flight helmet, and photos of him smiling beside the plane named Marge. No one flew like Bong. No one fought like him. But above all, no one loved America's skies like he did. And perhaps, up above, where the white clouds never fade, a silver-winged bird still flies. Not for glory, not for victory, but because that heart was born to soar. Thank you for joining me on this journey to explore the heroic history of Douglas MacArthur, the legendary warrior who never backed down. If you love stories using moving, inspiring characters like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Your subscription is a great motivation for me to continue telling memorable stories in world history.